In this episode of Supercharged Podcast, we discuss David's epic Southwest road trip, and Angela talks about her divas and shares some electrifying news.
Let's go!
Dipping in my Tesla. 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 Dipping in my Tesla.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 7 of Supercharged Podcast. Whole gang with you today. Ryan with David, Angela. Got a lot to talk about. Been, 3-4 weeks since we all got together. Everyone's been doing their own thing here over the summer, headed in different states and different time zones. And we finally got just a couple days that we all matched up our schedules. And first thing we did was jump right back in here in the 100-degree Oregon heat here into the basement of the house. That's by far the coolest room in our house, thankfully, and got together to do an episode here.
We're a busy crew,
That's
for
right.
sure.
That's right. So, David, you just walked in here, 20, 30 minutes ago, and hadn't seen you since maybe a couple days before you left on the epic Model 3 road trip across west of the Mississippi River, America. Right.
It was.
You need to have like the epic voice.
You basically covered the entire
Epic road trip.
the entire ground that every old Clint Eastwood Western movie, was filmed across. Basically went to every filming site.
Yeah, every great site
Scenic
of
Western America. Right.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Ken
Yeah.
Burns' The West. Across the whole thing.
I would like to see him do a focused episode. On that. I love that National Park series by Ken Burns, but I also realize it can put people to sleep.
Yes.
So, it was an awesome, epic road trip. Just to kind of give you an idea of what we covered. So my partner and I, we drove through Redwood National Park, did some hiking there. Went into the Bay Area, saw a Drum Corps International show at Stanford University, and then we went a couple nights to Yosemite, did some hiking in Yosemite. Then we drove, through Death Valley. We got out of the car a couple times, but we quickly got back in. And a quick overnight in Vegas, and then on to a couple nights time with the family in Albuquerque. On the way back, we hit up Monument Valley and then Bryce Canyon. So a lot of great sites covered in there.
Great.
Yeah, and I think I was out with my bike riding buddies this morning, and they were asking me about the road trip. And it's one of the most common questions is like, it can do that. How did you find the charging situation? Is how it was asked to me this morning, and I was like, well, actually, it's really easy.
You pull out your handy-dandy notebook.
I didn't go that crazy, but I did say it was pretty easy. I said, look, Tesla has built these supercharging sites all over, and it makes it pretty easy to get around the country. Yeah. And I kind of used a little bit of this information, but I prepared some data. I've tried to take some feedback from prior episodes, kind of lighten up on the numbers. But I will have to use a few numbers. But to give you an idea of like at the extreme, well, at least my extreme of a long driving day was 589 miles. So that's pretty far.
Yeah, that's a good driving day.
And it should be noted that we started that day with a full charge because the hotel we had a charger. So like overnight it filled up. And we left, and then it just took 64 minutes of charging through that day.
Wow.
To get through. And one of the stops we treated it as a lunch stop. So, I mean, that quickly ate up a good half of that 64 minutes.
And you would say, it's noticeable with the Model 3. There's more miles per kilowatt, basically, right? Because it's the lighter car with the density. I think.
You get further per kilowatt hour.
Right. So via time, you're getting more miles of your supercharging time. That's actually pretty
without a doubt
significant advantage. Yeah.
I think that was my main realization from having driven a Model S in a really long epic road trip before, and then having this Model 3. And then also it bore out during this current road trip because we would be going the same direction as another driver, and this guy was driving a Model S. And we just noticed that as we hopped superchargers, we were, it was like we came in behind him at the beginning of the day, and then he left before us. And then, there was a stop where we arrived and departed about the same time. And then, later in the day, it was like we were leaving the charger and he was just pulling in. Every time we were waving and,
Right.
we talked to him briefly, but it was interesting to see, and, roughly driving the same amount of speed and that kind of thing, but just the
Right.
fact that charging was happening a little faster for the car, just out of the nature of every kilowatt hour we got into that battery, just took us further.
Sure.
And so we didn't necessarily need to plug in as long.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an interesting comparison
But,
I did.
but in his defense, he probably wasn't paying any money.
Well,
to
that is most certainly true.
Right.
And I can give you some numbers on how much
Sure.
it costs.
Yeah.
And I'll head into that information, which is found a little confusing. The car, so again, I have a Model 3, so you have to pay for supercharging.
Yeah.
It gives you a little number at the end of your session of like how many dollars, and we wrote those down
That's
every
what
time.
this pops up on the screen there when you
Oh, it's
unplug?
just like, necessarily it's like dollar amount doesn't pop up. It's just visible during the whole charge session, and that dollar figure keeps
Okay, so
inching
like
up.
so like in the S where it says at the bottom like miles added and kilowatts added, kilowatt hours added. Then there's this third line that says like the
Yeah.
money or something.
Not with kilowatts and plus miles, but it's in a different spot.
Yeah, okay.
Just like, an inch away.
Understood. Yeah.
And it expresses it there in dollars, and you see it creep up every so often. We wrote those numbers at the end of the sessions down, and all of those added up to $129.58.
That ain't
Wow.
Which is actually
What were your
pretty
total
cheap.
miles?
Total miles 4,041.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean that's cheaper than gas.
I recalculated for the Honda CR-V that we have, that if we had taken that, it was like $430 roughly of gasoline it would have cost.
Yeah.
That's roughly just because gas prices vary, so I had to use an average.
Right.
But something interesting, this is when I report back, I then went into my Tesla account and added up all my bills for all those. That added up to $133.98.
What was the first number you said?
$129.58.
So you're saying they overcharged you by $2?
I
Or just the timing of unplugging?
Yeah,
is-
I just
yeah.
think they got to work on the software there, because there have been people who have contacted Tesla. I've read this, and they said, "Oh, well, the car number is an estimate. Your final bill in your Tesla account is what's the real charge."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Well, I'm not going to call them for this discrepancy. I'm not worried about it." Over
Yeah.
That's like a
$100.
Starbucks latte right
Yeah,
there.
it is.
So-
I'm not,
so-
not saying I'm above that, but
When you go into My Tesla, is there like line items? Like it'll say this supercharger, this time, this many kilowatts added. Like it has like line item like that.
yeah, it does. Yeah. So in fact, they print an individual invoice per charge session.
No, okay.
And it gives when you were there, where you were, how much energy, or how long you were plugged in. Each state. Those are the two options based on which state.
And excuse me for being so Model 3 uneducated here, but you plug it in just like the Model S. There's no like accept charges, anything. You just plug it in and it's just automatically charged to your credit card.
That's
all.
right,
It's
yeah.
no different. They're just charging a credit card you have on file, basically.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
no different.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So it cost a little bit more in the final kind of charges that they calculated once they were all done. But I'm not too worried about that. So I can actually compare. So this comparison, I think, should be noted, is mostly due to the fact that the Model S and Model 3 are different cars, different weights, different sizes. But I think there's probably some portion of this has to do with efficiency gains in their drivetrains and the battery being optimized for supercharging over time. Between these, the road trip in the Model S that I'm reporting data for occurred in July of 2014, and the Model 3 is July of 2018, so about
And you
4
were-
years apart.
And the Model S was like very first battery chemistry, which has probably changed a lot too.
Yeah, I think technically it was the second. It was like the B part number
Really?
of the 85 kilowatt.
Really?
Those A's they were pretty short lived. So
That was like when they canceled the 40 kilowatt. Like was at the same time.
yeah,
'Cause that was
all
like-
similar time. So the car came to me in April of 2013. So the road trip happened in July of 2014. So it had some miles on it when I was finally taking it on a big long road trip.
All right.
So the average charge session between 2018 was 22 minutes. The 2014 charge sessions were 35 minutes. So you can see, the number of minutes plugged in there definitely went down, 22 from 35. That's pretty great.
And you were doing a lot of plugging in based on your optimized that we talked a couple episodes back with your better route planner and that with the planning you did where you weren't necessarily charging up to 90% every time.
No, definitely
You were
not.
charging to whatever number it said to get to the next place, basically, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Which for those of you that don't know, when you go to a higher charge, it starts to slow down. When the battery's more full, it takes longer to do each charge there. So you were really optimizing the planning and not necessarily putting in a huge reserve sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that as well in 2014, just in fairness. Like I had optimized there as well.
Yeah.
I used, what was the other one we discussed as a better route planner? EV Trip Planner?
EV Trip
That's the
Planner.
one I used in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. That one existed first, so I happened to use that one then. So minutes decreased there. I mean, in part because, again, I don't need as much energy.
Sure.
But here's a number that'll kind of equalize it. The average number of rated miles, that's the number of miles indicated in your battery remaining, in 2018 was 127 miles. So the average number of miles I gained at the charge session was 127. In 2014 was 128. It is almost equal. I think for the purposes of this discussion, we can
Right.
say they were equal.
It's within the margin of error, we'll say.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the fact I was getting the same amount of range went down from 35 down to 22 minutes.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive to me.
Did you keep track of the kilowatt number coming in? Not the kilowatt hour number, what the supercharger is actually putting out.
Yeah, and that's where I think it proves that there's some battery improvements.
Yeah.
So, why, yes, Ryan, I have lots of data. So you have to hold me back. But if you ask the question, I'll give you the data. 2014 sessions, the average power this is just averaged over the whole
This is
session.
what the supercharger is putting out at the time, right?
66.4 kilowatts.
That was in 14.
14.
Yeah.
And then 80 was the number in 2018.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I haven't kept numbers on it, but to me it almost appears like it's gone down maybe since we got the car. But I don't know if that's just because more cars are plugged in.
I was going to say, I feel like the superchargers are busier now.
Yeah. So I mean,
than
it could
they
be
used
that.
to
And I like I said, I have not kept actual data. I'm just going on like sort of an overall judgment of the situation, which could be completely incorrect information too.
I didn't.
I will trust your hard numbers over my perception.
And this is just average power over the whole session.
Yeah.
But I have some just subjective observations here that the amount of power, like how long Model 3 sustains the highest power level, seems much longer than that original Model S
It
I
makes
had.
sense to get better at these batteries, right?
Right.
They designed a whole new cell, for this Model 3. It's operating on a cell they basically invented, I guess, or close to it.
Well, let's say contributed to the design with Panasonic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's a lot of reasons the engineers came up with that being a better cell than the 18750s in the S and X, which I think was an old design. I don't think they just kind of grabbed it. A lot of other flashlights and stuff use the same cell. So yeah, I'm sure that there's reasons. The engineers had a lot of reasons for switching to what they switched to.
We should note the superchargers have not gotten faster.
Right.
It's just the batteries have been able to take more power, like sustain that higher level over time.
Right.
And I'm sure there's a level of negotiating with the utilities too to get the level of power they're asking for and sustaining that, and I mean there's a lot going into that on the infrastructure end too, I'm sure. 'Cause it's a big power draw when there's I mean some of these 20 station
They gotta
20
be-
plug super charging stations, there's a lot of power coming into those that it's probably not easy for a utility company to just say, oh yeah, you can take that right off the top, no problem.
And that's my point on it costs more to supercharge than charge at home is exactly
that
that
reason.
reason, because
Sure.
the power company's charging more money
Sure.
for that high demand power.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with overall in the whole trip, 75% of the charging events took 30 minutes or less. The average I already said is 22. So really, these are relatively short sessions. I think that it's nice that you can be refreshed at each stop, and you don't feel like just drained to go to all these things.
How did you find there's a lot of more rural areas you are going here to charge.
Yeah.
How did you find the accessibility of, say, a Starbucks near all of these charging
Or a
stations
restroom.
in the more rural areas?
I think they've done a pretty good job of locating.
Okay.
I will say I was road trip prepared based on, my family history. We had a cooler in the back, kept refreshing the ice, made sure we had
Well,
beverages.
I'm a warm coffee guy, so that's hard to get out of a cooler.
Yeah. I had cold coffee in there.
Cold coffee.
Good. Okay.
I don't know if I could go back to my old college Red Bull days. That might be a little much.
I think you would have had to.
It's also not allowed in the car.
There were definitely some stops where a walk to a hot coffee place was
might not have been possible.
But it was usually with a Hampton Inn or Courtyard Marriott.
Oh, well then.
Those are the two most popular brands they have on
Usually
hotel
in the
sites.
lobby they keep a coffee thing. Yeah.
Exactly my point. Yeah. So I think you just have to make sure the hotel site host is nice, because I think the Hampton Inn's going to be like, okay, go ahead and take that free. Courtyard Marriott's going to be like, that would be $350.
For this coffee that has been made 6 hours ago.
Yeah.
Right.
It kind of depends on like how friendly each chain is.
Sure.
So I think the rule idea is that there were two sites that I wanted in some cases to have a little backup plan. So I used some RV parks. So, two stops. One did not go well, and that was near Monument Valley. And
Was this the nice people who knew exactly what you were talking about and gave you the discount? Or
no,
was this was the other place.
this is the place where I was quoted one number in advance on the phone, and when I got there, it was a higher number.
And the number they originally quoted you was the full price to park an RV in the same spot. For
No,
the night?
they had a special EV rate.
Okay.
So I thought these were going to be the friendly guys, the nice.
This is the
guys.
place. So this is the story you were telling, that they had the EV rate and knew exactly what you were.
Yeah,
trying
it's
to do.
essentially these ended up being flipped. So this is the place that said they had an EV rate. I showed up, they wanted more. I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do? Say no and not charge? But it wasn't all the way to a full RV rate. Plugged in and got notification, a little less than an hour in, that charging was interrupted, and went to go check, and sure enough, it just was off. I called them back and said, hey, I'm away. I'm going on one of your tours of Monument Valley. Can you by chance go back and turn the breaker off and on? And they did that, and then he volunteered to check it a few more times while I'm out on the tour and out of cell phone range, and I think he did at least once more. And so out of 4 hours of charging, where I should have probably got 80 plus miles of range, almost 100 miles of range, I got 39 miles of range.
Jeez.
So I was a little worried the next day, because I was kind of counting on that charge session to be my buffer for the next day, so I didn't show up at 0 at the next place to charge. And but I did all right the next day. And then the RV park where I was like, I'm leaving it all the way overnight, I volunteered to pay the full RV rate. But when I got there, they said, a car? No, we're going to charge you the car rate. And then they lowered the price in
Really?
the moment.
Wow.
So I got
Very
the
nice.
opposite treatment there.
And they had no idea. I mean, they probably would have sold that space to some guy in his.
It was totally legit RV spot. It could have been a medium-sized RV there.
Well, that's terrific customer service on there.
They were very
Definitely.
nice there at Bryce Canyon. Yeah, it's
We should probably tweet out their information for all of our
Yeah.
EV followers too. That sounds like a very EV friendly.
It was for sure.
Campground that we should give support to.
Yeah, and it's actually a part of a hotel and campground. Why I can't the name is escaping me. It's the only name in Bryce, Utah. They kind of run it all there, but they were very friendly and knew exactly where to place me so that I'd be closest to the hotel as well.
Beautiful.
So they were very familiar. So RV. I'll leave you with one more tip. If you're trying to take a road trip and you're encountering RV charging, most RV parks are 3-phase commercial power, which is 208 volts instead of 240. So that immediately lowers your charge rate. I forgot that fact. Not every RV park. My past also says some of them have 240 volts.
So as opposed to like the 28 miles an hour ish, you're getting, well, that's what it is in my Model S.
You would probably get 22, 23.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple autopilot learns. through the whole thing because I spent a lot of time on highways. There's a lot of U.S. highways, like 4-lane U.S. highways that we ended up using, and those are not limited access. They have cross traffic, and that's when the car won't use auto lane change. So it makes full autopilot a little frustrating to use because there's a lot of overtaking of semis and other cars.
Yeah.
So I actually found I preferred just the basic traffic-aware cruise control and did the steering myself, which of course I complained about having to steer. That was so hard. So that was one frustration I just found. Like when there's high amount of traffic, a lot of passing, just like disengaging it was not something I liked to do. Then 2-lane highways with low traffic actually found autopilot to be a real friendly tool there. So like the roads into and out of Death Valley are really well paved. They're 2-lane, and they're curves aren't too sharp.
And that's okay if you're comfortable going only 5 over the speed limit, right? Because you're getting to 5 over.
We were just doing 5 over the speed limit just because that was a really long stretch for this battery. That worked really well. And then I'll just say there's some roads where it's just not going to work. Winding roads into and out of some of these national parks aren't.
Well, and those are the fun roads.
Those
to
are the
drive
fun
a
roads.
Sports car on anyway.
And
mean,
that's
you got
why
a sporty
I loved,
little car to begin with. Yeah.
I love driving the Model 3 on those roads.
yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's those long stretches of interstate that aren't fun to drive.
Those where it really came into its own, and just that's where it worked really well. Where the auto lane change worked well. Yeah. I think. Cody was not a super fan of it doing 80 plus in the states that have 80 mile per hour speed limits.
Oh yeah.
That kind of
and 90
that trust level changes at that speed.
It's like 89 is the max or 90, is it? Right?
We didn't explore that.
We never did
number.
that. It just turns itself completely off instantly. By the way.
Oh, if you
its reaction. I've been like in the left lane. I've been in the left lane when like a truck is kind of fluctuating in my lane, like an 18-wheeler, and that makes me quite uncomfortable. Whenever I see that, my natural reaction is to just floor the car, and I don't care how fast I go to get by the guy. You know what I mean? It's just a safety reaction. I'm like, I don't want to be next to a truck with a trailer that's kind of fishtailing out here. So I gun it, and yeah, the second you hit 90, it just goes ding 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 ding, and it's like
it's out.
It's all yours. It's like
okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't encounter that.
That's at least how the S used to react. This has been probably a year since I've encountered that, but that's how it used to react to that.
We didn't do that. In part, those 80 mile per hour stretches in Idaho, we were facing 20 plus mile per hour headwinds. So we were already like going 80 is high energy use, and then the headwind, we were having to actually like watch the energy use just to make sure. I wasn't quite expecting the headwind that strong. So, some learns. It was a great fun time. I hope that data helps. Kind of just reinforces Model 3 at least is great road trip car.
You can.
I mean, the Model S is a great road trip car too.
Right.
But I think it definitely demonstrates lower energy use means maybe even a better road trip car, just because those charging sessions get a lot shorter.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I had a coworker this week that was asking me all about the car, interested in it. She
in Teslas in general.
Teslas in general,
or just electric vehicles.
S or the 3, yeah. But yeah, I was using your road trip as an example because I think one of her concerns was just how far can you go? Can you go places with it? That she was interested, had been kind of following them, but this is still kind of foreign information that. I was telling her about your trip and how far you had gone, and this I did not give her your spreadsheet. But I mean, it's interesting that a lot of people that even follow this don't know. Yeah, I mean, you can go on road trips with these cars, especially the Tesla.
There's a lot of people, on various forums that we follow that still, even though they own a Tesla, are still, I can't get rid of my ICE or my internal combustion engine vehicle because I need it for road trips. But
yeah,
this proves that it's
you can
doable.
Do it.
It's doable.
Oh yeah, it's doable. Even minimal work. I mean, I think you put in a lot more work and research ahead of time than a lot of people would, and than I would for certain. But I would still feel comfortable doing it. I mean, you were going to some more remote places, but yeah, I mean that's good information.
Yeah, I would summarize that if you did not want to put the work I did in, because I like optimizing things, and you were just kind of winging it and say, hey, here's my final destination, and you let the navigation computer figure it out on the charging stops, I would just say take 10% power more than what the computer
That's my
suggests.
basic approach to it. Is I use the the in-car, navigation system there to plan it. And we basically just say, throw an extra 10% on top. And we kind of charge it up towards 90% most places anyway, unless we're really in a hurry to get to the next stop.
Right.
We kind of just let it trickle charge towards the end there all the way up to 90% anyway, and have an extra cup of coffee at the Starbucks or something. So yeah, I mean, those are the two approaches. I feel more comfortable, I think, personally, with just extra reserve in case, I don't know, if we want to go out of the way to go somewhere or whatever,
Yeah.
But I'm using much less precise numbers too, just whatever the car's throwing at me. So
Yeah.
awesome. So now that you got that out, you do another road trip.
I would gladly. Yeah. I mean,
So
we
next-
haven't planned it yet, but we want to do it.
So how about next summer we go north to like Banff National Park, and we'll just
Banff.
National Park.
Well, that's exactly
and
where
we'll
Cody and I want to go. Banff.
Well, we didn't talk about this ahead of time.
No,
and I
no,
We
but
suggested
it's
we could do a road trip of
Caravan.
so
this. So exciting.
we can do
Podcast
2
episodes on the way.
I can't say that yet. I mean, I was
No.
trying to set you up into the
Oh.
lead in here.
Yeah, but I had another topic I was going to mention.
Do first.
Yeah.
Oh,
So while David was off.
wait.
Oh,
Uh,
Oh, no.
seriously.
seriously. Yeah.
I know
I mean,
it's
how
gonna,
much?
it was going to make a sound. Yeah.
Oh, and we get to listen to it.
You got to
pour.
listen to me pour my beer here. Yeah. I could do a little honor to like the Tesla show where they explain what they're drinking at the beginning of every episode.
What are you drinking?
This is a Deschutes Brewery Pacific Wonderland lager.
Very nice.
It seems very location specific for us.
Ryan and I got married at Deschutes Brewery.
That's
so
true. That is true.
Very special place.
I'm drinking a cold brew
Just a coffee.
from
one.
Insomnia Coffee in Hillsboro, Oregon.
And Angela's drinking a Diet Coke.
I'm drinking a Diet Coke. I never change things up. Yeah. So, while David was off on his road trip and Ryan's been away at work, I actually had the opportunity this past week, I guess last weekend, to meet up with this awesome group of women. This was so much fun. So if any women out there listening, if you guys are not already familiar with this, there's a Facebook group called Tesla Divas, and it's basically what it is just a women's group of Tesla owners or Tesla enthusiasts, and it's kind of, much like any other Facebook group that, we post questions that you have or observations or, just suggestions of various Tesla related things. And it's a worldwide group, but there are individual states or regions that have either their own Facebook pages or just, kind of through the main page we'll kind of meet up. And anyway, so the Portland Tesla Diva group got together this past weekend in Portland, and I think there were 7 of us there, which was a bigger turnout than I expected. And it was actually a lot of fun to, I most of the time I'm hanging out with you two, and no offense to you, but there's certain things that you guys don't find as interesting as women may, and so it was fun to be able to get to know some of these ladies. It turned out one of the other Tesla owners there was also a veterinarian. What are the chances of that there were 2 of us out of a group of 7? So that was pretty cool. I met a couple of people who, we've already discussed meeting up again and, getting lunch together and just, chatting about things, which is really great. One of the ladies the night before had taken her Model S out to the Portland International Raceway and had done
The drag times.
some drag
Do you know what
racing
kind
with
of
it.
car and what times it put up?
She has I believe it's a 2016 60. And I'm sorry, Judith, if I'm saying this wrong. And I think most of her times it looked like were between about 102 to like 110, I think.
It's a quarter mile. That's probably like 11-ish. It's over
I can't
10,
remember.
11,
I mean,
12.
I'm sorry, those were her speeds during that
Top
time.
speed
So
in the
yeah,
quarter,
top
yeah,
speed,
yeah.
yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
So I can't remember what her times were, but I think she said
And that's
one,
about...
and I can't remember the exact details now, but definitely a couple that she won, and I think one that she lost, and one
And
that
that's-
the other car blew up.
The other car...
The engine.
And I think that's literally the slowest Tesla ever made, right? I mean, other than the 40 they made
Maybe.
like 6 of.
Yeah, but
Right, the 60 Model S.
Kind
Well,
of
there was
a-
a 60 Model X too, I guess. Because I think the
There
Model...
was.
That might be
Yeah.
slower.
I would
Might
think
be
the
slower.
Model 3 is actually faster than both of those. At least the one that's
Probably.
currently out. Yeah.
But anyway,
cool.
so it was cool.
That's my point. Those
Yeah.
are still good,
It's still very
normal
good
car
times.
times out of the slowest Tesla you can have.
I know some of the other ladies had talked about maybe going out there and doing that again together. I will not be participating in that. That is not my cup of tea. I drive like a little old lady going to church. So,
And most insurance companies do not cover anything that happens there.
that's probably true.
Usually
But
true.
anyway, so it was just fun to be able to meet these ladies. It was a wonderful time. We hung out for 2-3 hours, I think it was. We were all standing out in the parking lot discussing each other's cars and the different modifications we'd made to them, whether it be a wrap or adding various accessories, ski racks like we have on ours. But anyway, if you're not familiar with that group, certainly look into it. Joining the Facebook group so that you can be part of the discussions. There's always some funny commentary on there as well, so pretty cool thing. The other exciting news, which Ryan almost stole my thunder here a couple minutes ago.
I thought I was doing, I'm usually the lead-in guy here on the show, and I
Gosh.
thought I was all set up for the lead-in.
Is that I officially configured my very own Model 3 this week, so yay! So we, our household is about to become 100% electric vehicle, and this
Somewhere
podcast
between-
is about to become 100% electric vehicle as well.
And delivery will happen sometime between 4 days from now and 6 months from now, just depending on...
It says September,
Nice of them to narrow it
says
down.
September to November. It was originally October to December.
But they said that on our S, and then they were like, can you take it next
That
week?
is true. We were
So-
unique in our Model S ordering, but
That was also the end of a quarter that I think they were trying to
Right.
maximize numbers. Yeah.
which, yeah. So sometime in the next handful of months, I will be taking delivery of my very own Model 3.
Are the secrets in what buttons were clicked
so
still being kept from David?
no,
That's your
so
personal
well,
decision.
okay.
We
So
discussed
for those
this.
of you who don't know the story, I can't remember if we've shared this, but
Maybe share it again. if I
David,
forgot.
when David ordered when he configured his Model 3, he kept it a secret what color he had
Just the color.
ordered, just the color. And he invited me to go with him to pick up his car, and it was still a secret to me of what color vehicle he had purchased. Ryan and I had, behind David's back, been kind of deciding what it was, and we had narrowed it down
I think
through...
we had eliminated two through random
we
things
had narrowed
you had
it
said
down
or
through some
something.
comments that David had made that said, "Oh, that's not."
You
that's
told
not
us the
gonna be it."
price, so we eliminated black, right? Because we did the
That's
math
true,
that it was
that's true.
impossible to configure with the base paint.
And he, I think, had made a comment that it wasn't blue, so we knew that. But
Right.
so we had it narrowed down to red, white, and midnight silver metallic. And so I go with David to pick up his car, and they're doing a delivery of 3 cars at the same time. We walk into the little showroom or the delivery area there, and there's one of each of those colors in there. And I turned to David and I said, well, that doesn't help me out at all. And of course, one of the other people taking delivery thought, I guess, that David and I were a couple, and said, he didn't tell you what color he got? Anyway, so it was just a really funny situation. So then David, when I ordered my Model 3, and I texted him about it, and he replied back, he said, if I had to guess, I would guess that you did not order or that you opted to not get the autopilot. And I said, well, maybe that'll be my little secret to keep, but...
Well, I was just guessing based on you're not like a super fan of the feature.
I'm not.
But I realized that you will both have access to the car, so maybe
I doubt Ryan's going to do much of the
okay.
driving of it, I'll be honest with you. But
you never know.
I gave her the car this whole month when I'm not home.
I
here.
did decide to get autopilot.
Oh,
and here's
good.
my reasoning. Is because they just in the past couple of weeks have added Summon, and our garage is a very, very tight fit for, it's supposedly a 2-vehicle garage.
We'll see
but
if that works
I
out,
think it's
yeah.
like a 2 smart car garage. So
2 vehicles where the doors don't open.
Which Summon can make work.
we figure Summon might be able to be the way that we can park both vehicles
I
in
might
the
have to
garage.
paint lines that the wheels have to perfectly match up with, and we can fit them in there. We'll see how this works out.
So I opted to go with
cool.
autopilot for that reason. We'll see how much
that
I
could turn
actually
out to
use
be
it.
one of the best features for you then because of your garage. I remember you guys
Yeah.
telling me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exciting news.
Yeah. Coming soon.
You probably already know what color I got.
I do because you sent me a picture of like your like
Oh, my
confirmation.
actual. That's
so
right. I
And
did.
I know it uses.
We also posted that same photo
That's
that I
right, I
screenshot of my
forgot.
email to our Supercharged Podcast
That's right.
Instagram.
That's
so
right.
I
So
don't think it's a big secret to most of
Ryan
our
and
listeners.
I are
probably.
about to have his and hers matching vehicles.
Midnight Silver
Midnight
Metallic.
Silver Metallic.
Yeah, Midnight Silver Metallic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the hip crowd of people love that color.
Do they use that acronym to
I've
describe
never
it?
heard that.
On the
I've never
on
heard
the
that.
boards they do, yeah.
They
Really?
do.
Maybe
I've
I've read
never-
that and
That's
was like wondering
who wants
what
to
it meant.
type that out?
That is a
Midnight
lot to
Silver
type.
It
Metallic.
is. It is.
It's fun to say, though.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
a fun
it's-
thing to say.
It is.
Do we? Oh, and then
So-
your wheels. Didn't you choose the gray wheels to match?
No.
Oh, you chose the
I just.
sport.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the
Arrow wheels?
The arrow wheels.
Yeah, like
is
the
what I
dark
got.
gray
yes,
arrow
I'm sorry.
wheels,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. I guess in my mind those were black, but yeah, you're right. So the reasoning for so originally Ryan and I were going to wait until obviously we wanted the all-wheel drive because we were going to be replacing my Subaru with this, and so and our Model S is only a rear-wheel drive, so we were waiting for the all-wheel drive, and then we were going to wait for the standard battery, but we heard that
Yeah, so Tesla had come. A lot of people follow it. So we talked about the tax breaks in the past. It's 200,000 sales in the U.S. And then if that happened, in whatever quarter it happened in, that extended 2 quarters past that. And we realized just this week, information came out that Tesla achieved the 200,000. And it seems that they did it like the first or second week of July. So what that means is the tax break fully extends all this quarter, the current quarter, which is quarter 3, and quarter 4 of 2018. So as long as you take delivery by December 31st of this year, you will get the full $7,500 federal tax break. Then that halves for the first 2 quarters of 2019, and for the second 2 quarters of 2019, it halves from there. So it's like $3,750 and $1,200, whatever, something like that. So $9,000 was the additional price for the big battery, and we figured we needed to make the order like ASAP to guarantee getting that full tax credit. So we were trying to take advantage of that.
It's almost like having the upgrade for free.
Oh, well,
Basically.
for like half price, because we probably
Yeah.
would have got the $3,750 credit had we waited
right.
for the shorter range battery with 4-wheel drive, right? Probably would have been in by June of next year.
That's
we
how
we
all-
also did a little bit of like David math in there
Yeah.
too, and factored in the fact that the longer we wait, the more depreciation there will be of my Subaru as a trade-in vehicle.
right.
Glad
and,
to hear that you did this.
And that I'm going to be needing new tires on my Subaru soon, so
Right.
we had to factor that
We
in.
might be able to get rid
and
of it before doing
before we
that.
need to get new tires. So
David Math just proves that that I need more things.
Right, exactly. Yeah, as long as you can justify it in your
Yep.
mind.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's that. And then we actually ordered the day. I read about it this morning, and we had been kind of close to pulling the trigger for, I don't know, a month since we got
Yeah.
the email and the 4-wheel drive was out. So since we got the email that we could order 4-wheel drive, it was a little over a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever. We were kind of going back and forth to just pulling the trigger, but then like trying to see if we could time out waiting to get the shorter range battery or whatever. But then Tuesday was the day I was home last week, whenever it was we ordered it. That morning they opened up anybody who doesn't even have a reservation to instantly order a performance model 4-wheel drive with the big battery, right? So they opened those orders up to anyone, even that doesn't have the reservation, even though there's still 300,000 people on the wait list or whatever. And they're just
It motivates people on the wait list.
right.
Who are supposedly, I think, going to still get priority.
That's what I've heard. They
Right.
still get priority at that ordering, but if you're waiting for the base $35,000 model, you're all the way at the end of the list whenever that becomes available next year without the full tax credit, either at the half or quarter tax credit, we'll call it, probably sometime in 19. So I guess that's where most people waiting for the smaller battery are going to end up tax credit wise, either in the half or quarter tax credit sometime in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, congrats on. I can't wait till
Thank
it
you.
comes.
I can't either. So now, if we make our Banff road trip next year, we'll have to decide which vehicle are we going to take.
Right, we're doing a 3
You know, the other thing,
caravan.
because, you know, and this is more just justification for, in my mind, of why it's okay that I went ahead and got the long-range battery. Because we figured that we'll probably still use our S as our primary travel vehicle.
It's free.
Because it has free
And
supercharging.
it's bigger inside. But
It
it's
is,
going to take longer to
but-
do trips. So if we went S and 3 on the road trip, you'd just be waiting a long time for me to charge and stopping twice as much for me to charge on my only, 217
And I was
miles on 90%.
my reasoning, because Ryan cut me off, my reasoning was that, you know, you never know if we want to take a road trip in the winter to go skiing somewhere and we need the 4-wheel drive or the all-wheel drive. That'd be nice.
Plus, in winter range, you know, like
Yeah.
all the heating requirements,
That's
you
true.
know,
See?
that's going to
See?
be longer range
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly. I did. This is totally changing subjects, but something I just thought of is Ryan briefly mentioned that I have been getting to drive the Model S this month while Ryan's been out of town, and I don't get to drive it all that often. But I made my own little tiny mini road trip over to visit my parents in Central Oregon, and stopped to charge. And this was referencing back to a podcast episode previously, but I needed to do kind of an extra long charge on it. I think I charged it up to like 90 or 95%, because there's not a charger in my parents' town.
You're trying to make a round trip.
I was trying to make a
situation
round trip back to the
supercharger.
supercharger. Anyway, so I was there for a little longer than I typically would have been, and so I took my dog for a run while we waited.
I'm
Got-
sure she enjoyed that.
And it
I
got the
did.
energy out of the dog to
It
let
got
her
my energy.
sleep
She
in the
slept
back
the rest of the
way.
way, which was nice, and I got my run out of the way. See, great things about driving an electric car.
Yeah.
Ryan, any other news-worthy things?
I think that's about all we have for this week. It was good to sneak in an episode with you guys and see your faces, and hopefully people didn't miss us too much for a couple weeks off, and should be on a pretty normal schedule again once August rolls back around, and
Yeah.
Think so?
back to giving you all the latest EV Tesla news we can.
I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Great.
All right.
Until next time, we'll see you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Engine on hum, and I'm driving an electric, helping out the planet, plus I'm feeling real sporty. New type of swag, looking cool when I'm 40.
Supercharged Podcast is presented by David Zygmunt, Ryan Vinton, Cameron Larson, and Angela Vinton. Portions of Dippin' in My Tesla are courtesy of Jay Brave. Copyright 2010. Lufam Pro Entertainment. Visit us on Facebook by searching Supercharged Podcast, on Twitter @SuperchargedPod, and Instagram @Supercharged Podcast. Have a question or comment you'd like to hear on the show? Call our hotline +1 657 845 1673.